Welcome in Thursday morning edition Oxford Exxon Podcast. Chase Parham, Neal, McCready, Clark Ford Studio here this morning. Jeffrey Wright joining us as always. Coming up in a couple minutes here on the show. Talk some college football, some NFL, and more divisional round of the NFL beginning on Saturday. Always maybe the best weekend of the football season from a professional standpoint. I don't know. Last week pretty good. Y'all had some close games, got some upsets, but we'll look at what's ahead this week. Ole Miss still expecting a lot more news out of the transfer portal over the next day, 2 days, something like that. Multiple commits are expected at this point. So we'll hit some of those things. Again, some of the stuff we keep on rebelgrove.com, but we'll talk a little of it here as well. So that and more coming up. Oxford Exxon Podcast, Oxford Exxon, Highway 6 West, and Oxford lunch specials. You get those different every single day. You get any size fountain drink, bread, and more. Go to the hot case, the ribs. They'll make it easy for dinner tonight, wet or dry, and they will take care of you. Also, they have chicken, dessert, side items, and more. Again, come to from the Clark Ford Studio.
We are Clark Ford's in Amory, Mississippi. 662-257-1900 is the number. Call it. Ask for Corey Clark. Tell Corey what Ford product you're looking for. He'll send you a quote within 15 minutes in business hours. Right to the bottom line. No hassle, no haggle. You get your quote. The rest is completely up to you. You can shop that quote around. You can do what I've done, what I recommend that you do, and that's hop into a Clark Ford today. 662-257-1900. Jeffrey Wright will join momentarily on the myperfectfranchise.net hotline. If you're a displaced corporate executive or you're wanting to put your career in your own hands, maybe you're an experienced entrepreneur looking to diversify. Well, Andy Ludicky can help. He's a longtime Rivals board member, a diehard college football fan, franchise veteran, owns multiple franchises and businesses. He uses his expertise to help others find their American dream through a very thorough and free consultation process. So call Andy, put your life and your career in your own hands. It's 100% free. You've got nothing to lose. Find your perfect franchise at myperfectfranchise.net. Contact Andy anytime at andy@myperfectfranchise.net. or on his cell, 404-973-9901. By the way, I published a beer garden for the first time in at least 2 years. Yesterday, Robert Perry came on, talked about his life, especially since August the 14th, 2016, when his brother and his sister-in-law were among 6 Oxford residents who were killed in a plane crash coming home from Orlando. We talked about life, parenting, faith, grit, a lot of those things. He was fantastic. I just sort of tried not to butcher it. So he's really good. That's up at where you listen to podcasts. And it's brought to you by Southern Traditions Farm. Southern Traditions Farm is a 68-acre, 32-stall upscale equestrian training and boarding facility in Canton, Mississippi. Check them out on Facebook or Instagram at Southern Traditions Farm.
So we'll get to Jeffrey here in just a second. I assume he's ready because we're running a little later than we typically are for Thursday. Somebody asked in the thread. I can at least answer this question. A Pollyanna person is originally. So somebody asked. Eleanor Porter is the author of that book.
Is that right?
That is correct, yes. The Pollyanna Principle.
Oh, how about that?
I mean, Jeffrey's probably the biggest Pollyanna I know. I mean, just absolutely, optimist. Everything's great all the time. Can't get him to ever say a critical word about himself or anybody else.
No, absolutely not. I just, every day above ground is just a miracle, guys. Aren't we blessed?
Yep. That's right.
Are we doing like Chase's book club? Is that what we're doing?
No, we kept we kept calling message board people Pollyannas yesterday, and somebody literally was just asking where that term comes from or what does it mean?
Actually, good point. I'm pretty sure that word was not really in my vocabulary until meeting Neal.
Oh, really?
Pollyanna?
Yeah.
Yeah. I've never been accused of that.
Yeah, like sunshine pumper. I mean, there's a term for everything, but but I do not think that was a regular part of my vocabulary until meeting Neal.
Even Chase got kind of attacked yesterday. Chase, it's usually the attacks.
Breaking news.
The attacks don't usually come after Chase. They were mad at Chase yesterday. I was telling him.
This just in.
Oh, gotcha. Okay.
That was really good. I was like, what happened on my computer? That was really good.
Mm-hmm.
Usually
are there some people on edge on the board?
Well, you know how this is because you do this now, I'm sure, covering Grizzlies, probably with covering the Tigers with the whole.
It's more Tigers because they're, the Grizzlies stuff doesn't get hypersensitive until the playoffs. That's just the nature of the leagues.
Here's what I was getting at, though. Sometimes you have this frustrates people, and I totally understand why it does. I do. I completely get it. I'm 1,000,000% sympathetic to what I'm about to say. We have conversations in the course of our day with different people, and obviously a lot of those conversations are off the record. They're on background. And
sure.
we know more than we can report. And I 1,000,000% get the people who are right now, well, then don't. If you know something and you can't say it, just don't say it. I get that. And we pretty much try to accept you can't help but that stuff creep into your opinions and into your thought process as you evaluate the way something happens and what's happening and why it's happening and how you're going to cover it. You can't help but have that stuff. And when you've talked to multiple people who tell you kind of the same thing or different versions of the same thing, you can't help but that sort of creep into the back of your mind, and it takes some form of root in what you say and what you write, especially when you're sitting here on camera every day for an hour and 15 minutes at the beginning of the day talking about the stories that your subscriber base or your listener base or whatever is talking about. That stuff creeps in, and it just does. And I get 1,000,000% the people who are like, well, if you know something and you can't say it, then you just need to. I get it. You just can't help. You can't help but let it cloud what you say.
Yeah, I just think y'all are in an unwinnable position because unless you get a new employer, a message board is just going to be a part of your lives.
Yeah.
And a message board is, I mean, for lack of a better term, like, yes, it has positives. There can be a community element. There can be, for y'all, that's an opportunity to, if you have something that's you're not really ready to report, but if you feel pretty good about it, like it offers you a place to write something that you don't have to report. And we all understand that there are positives to it, but the reality is it also allows for the worst of the worst from human nature because they're behind a keyboard.
There's a lot to it right now, especially it pertains to football, because you've got a situation where Kiffin lost whatever capital he did at the end of the regular season. You've got a certain segment of the fan base that's very annoyed by that, has lost faith in him to some degree, is frustrated. You have some that are clinging to everything as, see, this is path that what happened in November is not evident to the future whatsoever. Some people who believe in the product because he's done a good job finding ways to put teams together for the most part. You've got all these different elements that are sort of combining. And I mean, look, there's tons of positives about the message board because I think in a lot of ways the community that is there is one of the reasons why people subscribe. But it's created this deal to where if you get, it just takes 5-10 people with every one of those mindsets to become kind of a hodgepodge where you have to step back, take a breath, and go, okay, nobody's necessarily even fighting about one thing. Everybody's just sort of arguing with their own confirmation bias about the same topic, if that makes sense.
Yeah, no, I think that's more than fair. But I also think the other aspect of it is, I think when you also, like, if you were to do like a content analysis, I think you'd see that it's a very small group that keeps yelling at each other. You know what I mean?
Oh, it is.
And I think it's also difficult, even if you understand something is true and that this is a small group of people and this isn't really reflective of the wider audience. And if I start catering to these people, I'm going to diminish my product. Even if you can understand that, it still doesn't mean that it doesn't, like, that it has no effect on you. And so I am sympathetic to that. I do think, though, Neal, I think the overwhelming majority of your audience is, I think that they would prefer sometimes I got to read between the lines. Yeah, it's frustrating you're not reporting, but at the same time, like, I've been around, and I've worked for y'all, and a large portion of your audience kind of gets that you can't say everything. And if you're paying attention, you'll have a pretty good sense of what's going on. And I think the problem is those people just consume the product. Like those are the best customers. They consume the product. They're like, oh, okay, I get it. And then they move on with their day. Whereas the rest just want to, watch the world burn because there's some sort of unhappiness that they're dealing with.
Yeah, 98% of the people want to know anything they can know, even if it's not everything.
Correct, even if it's hinted.
Yeah.
You watch a ton of college football, more than I do. I think more than Chase does.
Yeah.
Probably more than maybe the two of us do combined.
Y'all have game day requirements.
Yeah, I mean, it just is what it is. I didn't mean that as a knock
Sure.
on anybody. Just you watch a ton of college football, and we believe, both of us, that Spencer Sanders is committing to Ole Miss as early as today. It might be tomorrow. It might be Saturday. It might be Monday. I guess there's a chance that it doesn't happen and he goes somewhere else, and we both go, well, that was a week of shows. But I'd be surprised.
It appears to be the worst-kept secret in Lafayette County right now.
Yeah. You've watched him a lot. Compare him to Jackson Dart.
Well, he's obviously older. Lot of experience. I mean, he's basically been a starter since his redshirt freshman year at Oklahoma State. The biggest difference is he comes from essentially, while Jackson never really ran an RPO system, I would say Spencer Sanders, I didn't follow his high school career enough, but basically since he's been at Oklahoma State, it's been exclusively RPO stuff. He is a bigger kid, although I don't know if y'all come. I think he's married. I think he's like a full blown adult.
He's married.
Yeah. Definitely bigger. He's a physical runner, but I don't know if I'd say he's fast, but you know what I mean? Like he's a good runner. I just have my questions about, I think one thing that, maybe 10 years down the line, we'll probably have a better sense of switching leagues. I just don't, this isn't even being, SEC homer. This is just kind of like, take a look at how Bo Nix is doing in Oregon. I don't believe all of that is just playing in a better offensive system. I think a lot of that is, it's like when if you played on the competitive baseball team that was, the high major competitive team, and then your buddies are short a summer game, short on a midweek game, and they ask you to play with them, and instead of seeing, guys that throw super hard, you start seeing, a little more hittable stuff, and the game's slower, and you have more success. I just don't know how it's going to be going in the other direction. Like if we're using college basketball as an example, transfer guys that transfer up, if you will, by and large, when you look at the numbers, they only do about 80% of what they were doing at the lower level. Does that mean that that's going to be the case with Spencer Sanders? No, but I will admit I am skeptical about a guy going from the Big 12 to the SEC, just, all of a sudden just keeping it rolling. And, Oklahoma State people had their frustrations with Spencer at times. Like he's not a perfect football player.
Yeah. It's funny. We were talking about this before we got started. If you look at Sanders' numbers, even from like his best season, they're just very similar to Dart's numbers. So I think what's going to be interesting in the spring, if we're right, is because they also brought Walker Howard in, and this is where we're getting into some of the off the record stuff.
Sure.
I know
what you know versus what you can say.
Yeah. The part that I know is Walker Howard left LSU for one reason, and one reason only.
To play.
He wanted to get and felt like he needed to get, for his development, needed to get meaningful reps. Now, spring reps and fall reps are different reps, but he felt like he needed to get meaningful reps. His concern at LSU was onefold. It was, okay, Jaden Daniels came back, and Jaden Daniels is going to be the starter. And Garrett Nussmeier is behind him, and he and Garrett are friends, but Garrett is viewed inside that building. Whether they're right or wrong, we'll find out. They paid a lot of money to make these choices, right? Garrett Nussmeier is viewed as the quarterback of the near future at LSU. In other words, the moment Jaden Daniels leaves, it's Nussmeier's gig, and they think he's going to be a very good quarterback. And so his concern was in 2023, he would either be getting those scant third-team reps. They're just, if you've ever gone to a college football practice in the season, you know that third-team reps, boy, there just aren't many of them. I mean,
third-team reps. If you want to get any reps, you've got to go play scout team.
You got to go play scout team. And so
playing scout team doesn't help you in your offense because literally they just put a card up like, hey, run this.
Yeah. And so you're going to scout team meetings to get ready for going up against your defense. And yes, you do improve some by going up against a starting SEC defense every day in practice, but you're not running your stuff. And you're not running your stuff with the guys who are playing. You're running your stuff with other guys who aren't playing on Saturday. So he didn't want to do that. So
I mean, the reality is, Neal, a lot of times you're doing it with walk-ons.
Yeah. So that was the reason. He was happy at LSU, has a lot of friends. His girlfriend's there. She's staying there. I mean, there's a lot of things that there's a lot of reasons for him just to stay at LSU. But he wanted to get those reps. So that's the part that I can't help, but I know that's going on. And so that subject came up. I know it did when he met with Lane Kiffin, when he met with Charlie Weiss Jr. Those conversations came up. Hey, I want to be able to compete. I want to put myself in a position to get better. I don't want to put myself in position to be the quarterback sooner rather than later, meaning no later than 2024. And that's where the whole Sanders-Dart, if they're both on campus in the fall, well, presumably they're getting the 1s and 2s reps. And at that point, Walker Howard would be in a position where he's like, okay, I left a place that I liked because I was the scout team quarterback to come to a place that I might very well like, but I've never been there before, to be the scout team quarterback. That part makes no sense. And so that's where something's got to give unless he's looking up in August going, well, I got lied to.
Yeah, and I think there's a segment of football fans that want to believe like, yeah, competition. Like, yeah, let's get as many as we can in the room. Can we also acknowledge like there isn't an unlimited budget? And I'm going to presume, considering how many teams do not have quarterbacks right now, I'm going to presume Walker Howard was in demand. I'm going to presume that Spencer Sanders is in demand.
Well, Howard for sure. The Sanders part, I'm actually kind of curious about. I would like to know what options he has.
It doesn't feel like there were a ton of like top 35 teams trying to get him at least. Let's say that.
And I mean, honestly, guys, I guess it surprises me in this sense. I think there's a lot of teams out there right now that don't have a quarterback. And so that kind of surprises me. But I could also understand there's a lot of teams going, hey, we don't want the 1-year rental. And I guess I can understand that. I also think, though, it should tell you, guys, like I'm not trying to crap on Spencer Sanders. Like if he ends up being the quarterback, like whatever, I'll watch him and I'll judge him based on what he does. But like, guys, there are plenty of people at Oklahoma State that weren't exactly, the ones that were upset about him leaving were only upset in the sense that A, I think he was a fairly popular guy, but B, like, well, we don't really know what's behind him. Like, I mean, he was benched at different times throughout his career.
Yeah, he's an interesting case because he's a good quarterback. There's no doubt about that. He's a successful quarterback at the Big 12 level. He's got good numbers. But when you look at his numbers, they're good. They're not popping off the page in relation to his resume. So if you just put his CV in front of you, it's Texas High, Mr. Football. It's Big 12 Offensive Player of the Year as a freshman. It's Big 12 Player of the Year in 2021. It's 3,000 snaps, 4-year starter, and you go, oh my God. And then you look at his numbers, and they were very similar to Dart's last year, and you go, they're good. but nothing went, oh my God, he has just overtaken the Big 12 for 4 seasons.
No, I do think the advantage he would have over Dart is he has spent most of his life playing in an offense that's more similar to what Ole Miss runs than what Dart runs. What Dart has run his whole life. And I think that would be the advantage. But I mean, I just take a look at it. Like, forget reporting and whatnot. Like, just use your eyes and use common sense. Like, if you're bringing in these quarterbacks, they can say whatever they want, but the reality is they're either concerned about Dart playing or they're concerned about Dart's health. But either way you look at it, there is concern about Dart.
I think they're concerned about his decision making. They're concerned about his. I think what's not there. It's one person. It's Lane Kiffin wants.
For sure.
Lane Kiffin wants Jack. We got to quit talking in plurals. It's a singular
yes.
deal.
It's also important to note with that offense, people can do the Charlie Weiss, they can do the whoever they want to blame. That offense is Lane Kiffin. Let's just say that. Like they're dancing around it.
Yeah, and the part that is unquestionable is that the decision making process involving personnel is singular. It's Lane Kiffin.
Yes.
So he wants Jackson to get better. Simple as that. And maybe bringing Sanders in is a motivating tool to make him better. Maybe it's a way of saying, hey, you either got to get better or you got to get out. I don't know. We'll see. The spring will be interesting because I know there are like rumblings that Jackson's going to bolt in the next week or so. I don't think so. Based on the conversations that I've had, I don't think so. I think Jackson, if anything, this just motivates him more.
Yeah.
If anything,
I think he's buckling down right now.
Yeah, and so you're going to have that element to spring practice. And again,
I mean, that's
you can
all.
Do it in the spring. In the spring, you can do 3 quarterbacks because you're not getting ready for a game on Saturday. So you can run 3 quarterbacks with the ones.
Well, and you're playing yourself. Like, you know what I mean? Like,
yeah.
You can have more reps because when you're preparing, like you can, all right, well, 1 defense go over there and then 2 defense go over here. Like you can rotate reps because you're practicing yourself so much.
Hey, NFL playoffs this weekend. Your Giants in the divisional playoffs. They looked really good against the
Minnesota's
Vikings.
Defense.
Yeah, can they go to Philly? It's going to be a step up against a rested Eagles team. Maybe a really rested Eagles team. What chance do you give your boys?
I think they have a puncher's chance. I hate the narrative that it's tough to beat the same team 3 times because the numbers actually bear it out. No, it's not. Usually when you beat the same team twice, you're usually better than them. Spoiler alert. I'll say this. This is what I feel. This is where I think they have a puncher's chance. On the one hand, I'm very scared because doesn't it feel very trendy? Like, 7.5, too many points. Give me the Giants. Like when everyone starts thinking that, like, and the line's not moving, that's a little concerning. But just having been a follower of Jalen Hurts' career, one of the more underspoken aspects about him is he has a bad big game record. Like at Alabama, like his best big game was the SEC championship game that he came off the bench. And I don't think that's coincidence. Like I think he gets a little more nervy than is at least discussed. Because I think when you look at like when he came off the bench after Tua got hurt, and to be clear, Tua was bad in that title game. I think it was just like, hey man, just throw him out there, and it was just kind of go be an athlete. But I mean, like you look at the playoff game from last year, he was horrific. The playoff games in college wasn't great. Even kind of like in big games with big environments, he wasn't all that good. And so that kind of gives me a little hope. And, the Giants have the ultimate, who cares mentality. Like if they lose, they're supposed to lose. And I do think all the pressure is on Philly.
What about Cowboys, Niners? No one's really given Dallas a shot, and they looked really good on Monday night.
The problem with Dallas is inconsistency. Like throughout the year, they had moments where you saw what you saw on Monday night where you're like, this is the best team. Like offense, look at all the weapons they have. Like, yeah, maybe Dak isn't elite, but he doesn't have to be. Like, he's just got to be good. And I thought on Monday night, he was better than good. Like, I thought his first 2 series, I thought he was really bad. And then after that, I'm not sure he missed a throw. Like, even his incompletions were like money throws. So he was really good. What I am more curious about is, on the one hand, maybe I've got serious Matt Campbell, Iowa State offense questions, because I watched Brock Purdy for his entire career, and I was rarely impressed. I understand Kyle Shanahan's offense is probably, if you're just an average quarterback, that's probably the best place to go, because it seems like he has a very good way of getting people wide open, and you don't have to make tough throws. You just got to hit open throws.
Yeah.
But the one thing, though, we haven't really seen Purdy have to go up against is an elite pass rush. The Commanders have a good pass rush, but, we saw it last week when Seattle was able to heat up Purdy and flush him to his left. He was pretty bad. They just couldn't do it the whole game. I think Dallas might be able to get after him the whole game, and I do think Dallas has got a really good shot. The problem, though, is they've just been so inconsistent throughout the year.
Yeah, it's hard to bet on them because they've had those games where you're like, okay, well, here comes Dallas, and then they just lay an egg, and you're like, okay, I'm off. And then they come back, and then they do the same thing. So, yeah, you're right. We didn't get to see, and again, thank goodness Damar Hamlin's okay. He's back in the Bills facility, all that stuff, which is great. But we didn't get to see that game the first time in Cincinnati, and it looked like we were headed for a shootout. Do we get a shootout this Sunday in Buffalo with the Bengals?
I think it's safe to say we were either headed for a shootout or we were headed for a blowout.
Oh, yeah.
Now, I mean, it was a matter of whether Bill's going to keep up, because I think what we were about to see was it was about to be 14-3.
I do too.
So it should also be noted that night was like an unseasonably warm night in Cincinnati. It was like perfect football conditions for shootout. I doubt we see that in Buffalo this week. My question on this game is, Cincinnati's clearly banged up. And while Jonah Williams is not a good left tackle, you saw what happened the moment he went out and they tried to move the guard out to left tackle. Like they could not, they basically couldn't run plays.
Right.
Like everything had to just be quick game, immediate, and should also be noted that Baltimore defense is a legit defense, and it's
top 5 in the league.
Yeah, it's certainly a better defense than what the Bengals are going to see on Sunday. My thing with the Bills is, I don't know, like Aaliyah has adopted the Bills, and I've watched them because obviously Calkins is a Buffalo fan, so I end up watching them every week. There's something in the last 7 weeks that's just not clicking. And I don't know if it's injury related. I don't know if it's ever since Josh has had this UCL injury. I don't feel like he's got the fastball. Like, he's still got a mega, like a bazooka, but it's not what, like, I know what his arm looks like when it's 100%, and it's not there. And there's just something about Burrow where, God, I don't know. Like, I just find myself thinking, like, every time he's got the ball, it's like, yeah, he's probably just going to go win this game. I don't know. I just have that thought with him.
Well, he's damn sure thinking it. That's for sure.
Well, and there's no question on that. Like, I don't know. Normally, guys like Burrow annoy me. I find myself in love with this guy. I don't know what it is, but it's just, God, I love the way he plays football. There's something about, like, if you think about it, think about last year's playoff run for the Bengals. People that were concerned about the Bengals and how they won on Sunday, I would just point out, like, yeah, that's just kind of how they win playoff games. Like, I don't know, if maybe 98-yard fumble return is probably on the more extreme end, but they win playoff games that you go, how the hell did they do that? And I think the answer is they've got him.
Any chance at all Jacksonville pulls it off in Kansas City?
Only from the sense that Kansas City gets bored. I do have concerns about teams that essentially spend most of the year just kind of like, all right, well, we're going to flip the switch come playoff time. Maybe Andy Reid's got a secret that I don't know about. I don't know. I just think it's really hard to just say, all right, guys, now we go. Now let's go. Let's flip the switch. However, they do have Patrick Mahomes. And, as much as I was gushing about Burrow, the most physically gifted human being playing quarterback right now is him.
Yeah.
In terms of throwing, everything. Like, the most physically gifted, I guess, from a physical standpoint is probably Allen. But in terms of like what I would want from a quarterback, just the ability to throw the football, I think he's the most gifted.
Grizzlies won 11 in a row.
Yeah, they go for the franchise record against Bron on Friday night.
Oh, wow. Is that at home?
It's in LA, but it's on national TV.
11 in a row.
Mm-hmm.
31-13. They're a half game behind Denver in the West. Denver's 30.
Yeah, neither of those teams will lose. So they just kind of stay.
And the only team that's really in that air in the East is the Celtics. Boston's 33-12. So I always ask this about Memphis, but the deadline's coming up. They're right there. I mean, the window is wide ass open. Is there anything they need to tweak? Is there a move they make, or is this their team? Because it's obviously a team that's good enough. Frankly, it's a team that's good enough to go win a title.
I think this is their team. The question for them is Danny Green. So Danny Green is getting close to returning. Now, how much faith can you put in Danny Green after another knee injury? Now, it should be clear, they don't need Danny Green to come in and be awesome. They need Danny Green they had a high level game against Cleveland last night. Even though Cleveland didn't have Donovan Mitchell, it was still just a competitive, physical, felt like a playoff game when you're watching it. The Grizzlies did not shoot the ball well from three. They needed Danny Green on a night like that to go and hit, 3 or 4 threes. Like, that's what they need him for. This franchise, I don't know if they'll say it on the record, but if you've covered them, it's true. And they kind of will reference it at times off the record, to bookend our conversations about these types of things. They modeled themselves after the Spurs.
Yeah.
The Spurs very rarely made moves in season. And they only made moves in season, honestly, when they were trying to, when they had a locker room issue or character issue. They were just get them out of here. The Grizzlies do not fit that. I will say the only way that I think they make a move is if Ja says we got to make a move, and I just don't see that happening. I think they view the move Danny Green coming back.
It's just wild to look at the standings, and I've watched a lot of these teams. Like, the Kings are a nice team, but the Kings aren't a threat to the Grizzlies. The Pelicans.
The Kings are that. The Kings are they're USC or Lincoln Riley, Oklahoma.
Yeah.
Their offense is so much fun that it's going to win them a bunch of games, but the fact that they can't stop anyone is going to bite them eventually when it matters. But they're fun to watch.
I mean, here's really, and I know I'm talking about the team that I watch night in and night out, but here's really all you need to know about the West is the Thunder played the whole season without Chet Holmgren. Pokusevski hasn't played in weeks. Everybody can make their jokes, but he was actually a pretty effective player before he got hurt. Jeremiah Robinson-Earl hasn't played in weeks, and people can say, who's that? He was a pretty effective player for them before he got hurt. They're 7-3. They are right now tied with the Clippers for the 8. They're a game and a half behind Dallas for the 5. That's all you really have to know about the West, is that it is so eminently winnable this year for the Nuggets and the Grizzlies that both of them have to be looking at each other and internally and going, okay, we got to do this. This is a trip to the finals right here. Because when I look at the Kings, the Pelicans, the Mavericks, even Golden State's a shell of itself. Utah, the Clippers, the Thunder, the Timberwolves. Phoenix is right now the 12. The Lakers are the 13. I mean, it is so right there for Memphis.
I agree with you on that. I think it's more important, though, for Denver because Denver's a little bit older than the Grizzlies.
Agreed.
And I'm not saying
100%.
I do because I agree with you in this sense that you and I both believe just because something's winnable this year does not mean it's going to be that in perpetuity, especially when you consider how quickly teams can, a guy can just force his way out and then all of a sudden, a league that looked wide open is now more competitive.
And Morant gets hurt, or Jackson gets hurt, or Desmond Bane gets hurt, or and all of a sudden you're just not the same team, and you take a step back. And some of those teams that we just talked about, the Pelicans, the Thunder, those kind of teams, the Jazz, they take a step up, and all of a sudden you're not the 2 anymore, you're the 4, and your second round matchup's so different. Yeah,
I'm with you. I still just think that the way that they would view it is because their core is so young that their window is longer. I do think with Denver, if the Grizzlies, I think it's like the average age is like 24, 25.
Yeah.
Denver, I think it's like 28. I just feel like it's a little bit, time is more pressing for Denver than it is for the Grizzlies.
1,000,000%, because they're sitting there looking at Nikola Jokic going, okay, he's had 2 MVPs, on his way possibly to a third.
Again, it's only halfway through the season. He should win a third. I don't know if he will. I think he's as good as he's ever been.
Yeah, and he's at the peak of his career, and you have to take advantage of it, right? Because you're not going to get that player in Denver routinely. You're certainly never going to get him in free agency.
I don't even know if you can bank on saying you ever get it again.
Right. So you got to.
He's that good.
I know you got not played 30 seconds, Jeffrey. Just kind of curious, what's going to happen with Lamar Jackson? A big deal, a franchise, trade him?
So, I mean, I think the Ravens have no one to blame but themselves.
Mm-hmm.
I get it. They're saying, hey, the Deshaun Watson contract was an abomination. Like, that was, to compare yourself to that, it's not fair. But I think you also have to, listen to Lamar. If Lamar wants that, I think the only way he's going to get that somewhere else. The question that I have is, what happens if he gets franchised on the exclusive franchise next year? Because it seems like they got the Roquan Smith deal done so that they could do that with Lamar. I mean, in the end, I don't know. I don't know what his doctors were telling him or they weren't telling him. I do know the comments from the team and his teammates and even Harbaugh, whether or not they're right or wrong, their comments suggest they thought he could have played and he didn't play. How is this going to be any different if he's playing on a franchise tag next year?
Yeah, and if they put him on a tag, you wonder, does he hold out? Does he say, okay, well, you know what, I'll show up for week 1, but I'm not showing up for camp?
Well, I mean, then they'll start, I don't know, they'll start finding him. In the end, I see it both ways because the narrative that was coming out was that Baltimore didn't offer him anything. That's not true. Baltimore offered him the type of extension that we've been seeing, which is 175 or 180 million guaranteed. And then the Watson contract happened and it just screwed everything up. And he's like, well, and honestly, I don't blame him. I think Lamar's better than Deshaun. I'll say this, I would much rather pay Lamar than pay Deshaun. Because I think Deshaun is in the wildly overrated category to me. And he's also very lucky that he was suspended for 11 games and that Russell Wilson just sucked up all the look at this contract, this guy sucks conversation, because it really distracted people from how bad Deshaun was this year. And again, maybe it's, hey, it was a tough situation coming in midway through the season, but I know what I saw. I don't think he's that good.
No, he wasn't. He was bad. And maybe it was rust, but it looked like more than rust. And next season in Cleveland, when it's his job, and if he's that bad, he's going to get the Wilson treatment.
They can blame Baker all they want. That offense is not a good fit for him either. He's not a get under center, fake the stretch, and make a play action throw. He wants to shotgun spread it out. That ain't the offense for him.
As always, thanks so much for the time. Really appreciate the help yesterday as well.
All right, boys, be good.
For 92.9, I see Jeffrey tweeted out a couple minutes ago. He's giving away a couple tickets to the Chris Rock, Dave Chappelle show. I guess that's in Memphis. So you can check in there today on the Jeff Calkins show. Pick you up a couple tickets.
What was the time on that? We did about 7-8 minutes of NBA. That will be. I will hear later today that we did an hour of NBA.
It's actually been better. Nobody said a word lately.
Okay.
Yeah, it's been better lately. I mean, frankly, we don't talk about it very much.
Hardly ever.
Usually I bring it up. Going down the list of things. I was pulling it up from last night. Did you watch any of that Arkansas-Missouri game last night?
I really didn't. I watched the Thunder and the Pacers, and so when it ended, I actually watched some of the post game, and I flipped over. I saw the end of it, but I
Thunder
didn't.
lose?
No, Thunder won.
Oh, congratulations!
We're at a point now where
you're gonna make the playoffs.
If the season ended tonight, the Thunder would be in the playoff. They'd be in the play-in.
Play-in thing.
They have a pick swap with the Clippers, and it is conceivable at this point, the way that the two teams are playing, that the Thunder will finish ahead of the Clippers and just take the Clippers pick.
That's interesting.
I mean, it's fascinating. I won't do it now. It is watching a young team.
That's really interesting.
Develop in front of your eyes, night in and night out, is one of the more. Frankly, it's one of the more fun things about being a sports fan.
It's what makes baseball and basketball fun because there's so many games. You see it in that level of time versus football where it's years and weeks. And it's such a different process.
Exactly.
You're binging in a way because it's just one night after another.
Watching the Braves the last couple of years, you're like, oh, boy, these guys are getting good. It's kind of happening like week by week.
It might even be the more fun period than the really, really winning.
Because
the really, really winning is stressful almost where you're like, oh, hell, look at the standings. We got to get the Dodgers tonight. We got to go. And in that point, it's like, 2 years we're rolling. Hey,
yeah.
Did you see Michael Harris? Yeah, that's hey, he's a stud.
It's precisely what it is. And so when you watch the Thunder, especially now, I mean, people humor me for 1 minute because this is a point about why people will say, why do you like pro sports? Well, here's why. When you watch the Thunder night in and night out, number one, the NBA is such a superior product to college basketball. Like I flipped over, I watched the end of Arkansas and Missouri. And there's so many fouls, and there's so many foul trouble, and it's so many free throws. It's just the game is choppy, right? By the way, kudos to Dennis Gates and Missouri. The atmosphere there is awesome right now. When you compare it to the atmosphere from the last couple of years when that arena was like so empty and yellow. You know what I mean?
Oh, sure.
It had just like, it looked like someone just like spilled yellow paint everywhere, and it was just sleepy. And now it's electric.
Sure.
Anyway. What's happened with the Thunder that you see is Shai Gilgeous-Alexander has gone from being a really good NBA player to probably a top 10 NBA player. They drafted Josh Giddey a year ago. He was a very effective rookie. And suddenly, especially in the last month or so, I don't have the numbers in front of me, obviously, and I would never do that here, but in the last month or so, he's become an all-star caliber player. They drafted Jalen Williams, the one from Santa Clara, not the one from Arkansas. The one from Santa Clara is going to be an all-rookie team. If you did the rookie of the year voting right now, he would, whether he would or would not finish third, he should finish third.
Okay.
There's two rookies that are better than him right now, Paolo Banchero and the kid I can't think. He was with the Pacers, Mathurin, the kid from Baylor. Those are the two guys, Arizona, not Baylor. Those are the two kids that are better than him right now as rookies. So they've got those guys. Lou Dort's playing really well and is one of the league's best, certainly 10 defenders, maybe one of the best 5 defenders, especially on the perimeter in the league. And so you watch those guys develop, and you're sitting there watching this and going, God, Holmgren hadn't played. What happens when Holmgren plays? If he's as good as a lot of people think he'll be, or even if he's not, even if he's just an effective role player. And then they have all this draft capital. That's what makes them fun. But to answer your question, no, that's what I watched. And then I actually listened to a lot of the postgame because they're just suddenly pretty interesting.
The postgame even, really? Huh.
It's just kind of interesting to hear guys talk when you can tell. You can tell that going into the season, the plan was to tank for Victor Wembanyama. And suddenly they're realizing that the Victor Wembanyama era in Oklahoma City is over. And to watch them sort of pivot.
All you need is one ball. Just lose a few games and get one ball. That's all you got to do.
That's the thing, though. They're playing so well that I don't know that an injury or two would derail them enough to get back into that conversation.
Yeah. Game you mentioned last night, Missouri, they're at Mizzou Arena. They win 79-76 over Arkansas. They were down 1 at the break and then 1 by 1 in the second half, or 1 by 4 in the second half, ended up winning by 3, 79-76. For Missouri, Arkansas is Ole Miss's next opponent. That is Saturday in Fayetteville. And as you said yesterday, Arkansas now 1-5 in the SEC, 12-6 overall. Just
Smith is coming back for them in large part because he's being passed on NBA draft boards. And so the people around him are like, oh, I guess we ought to play. Because I think the plan when he
was to not play.
When he, quote, got hurt was to go, okay, let's just get off. Let's just stay healthy.
Abort.
Yeah, and now, like Brandon Miller, for example, at Alabama, is starting to get talk as the second pick in the draft.
Really? Is he that good?
Oh, I love him.
I thought the kid, who's the kid that's been the number 2 pick,
Scoot
the point
Henderson.
guard? Yeah, him.
And he probably still will be. But if you're a team that has a point, do you take Scoot Henderson anyway? Probably, and you work it out because if you're the team that gets the second pick, I mean, you were talking about Houston, San Antonio,
Detroit,
Charlotte, Orlando. Realistically, it's one of those 5. You're nowhere close. You don't draft for fit. But man, if you do have a guy that you think is your point guard, Brandon Miller is this 6'9" wing who can shoot the lights out, can get to the rack, can score from pretty much anywhere on the floor. And going into the season, people are like, he can't defend. Yeah, he can. I'm watching him. He absolutely can defend. And so he's moving up. There are other guys that are their draft stocks jumping, and so the people that are around Nick Smith Jr. are like, I guess we need to get back on the floor.
Elsewhere in the SEC yesterday, Auburn goes to Baton Rouge, wins handedly 67-49 in that one, up 11 at the break, and then outscored in the second half as well. Auburn now 5-1 in the SEC, despite some shooting issues, but still winning basketball games.
He's such a good coach.
LSU 1-5 in the league for the Tigers.
Yeah,
they're a little better than that, but it's hard.
The clock struck 12.
Yeah.
I mean, they're not gonna get a whole lot better.
And then the surging Texas A&M Aggies, they've won 7 in a row now. They last night hauled off Florida 54-52 in that one. They kind of got dominated in the second half, but did hold on from a little bit of a run from the Gators. Texas A&M 13-5 overall, 5-0 in the SEC right now.
Yep.
Florida 10-8, 3-3. They're very average.
Florida's a bubble team. I think Texas A&M is
Florida's a bubble.
Yeah, I think Texas A&M is going to play its way off the bubble and into the tournament.
Well, they're headed that way.
Yeah.
Fast.
I mean, they just got off to a bad start and everybody freaked out.
Look, Buzz Williams is not a bad basketball coach.
Shit.
He's all right.
So good. The thing about this league, man, I mean, all the coaching is good. I'm impressed by Gates at Missouri. I really am. I've told you this. They by God have an identity.
They've done he's done a really good job.
He coached with Leonard Hamilton for a long time. And Leonard Hamilton is one of the most underrated coaches in all of sports. People just don't talk about him because he stayed at Florida State all these years. Go look at Florida State over the course of time at basketball, a place that was never any good at basketball. He's made them consistently really good. And Gates learned a lot. And by God, they get up and down the floor at Mizzou. Even though they don't really have the players to do it. If he ever gets the players, look out.
Yeah, Will Wade is doing a podcast, and per lots of people, he is not hireable as a college basketball coach currently. Somebody asking in the stream.
Yeah. Over the course of the last week, I've talked to a lot of LSU people, and mostly it's been about Walker Howard and about football. But occasionally, Will Wade's name would come up, and the consensus down there is that the show cause that Will Wade will get will make it prohibitive for the next
about to get a bomb thrown on him
for the next half decade or so.
Yeah. Saturday, just set it up. If you're curious about some games, Ole Miss at Arkansas. That's 11 a.m. on ESPN2. So a national 11 a.m. game there for the Razorbacks and the Rebels. Vanderbilt's at Georgia on Saturday.
Yeah, Alan mentions it in the thread. If you haven't watched Arkansas this year, watch Alan Black. Not Alan. What's his name? First name Black. What's the kid's first name?
Well, now you're confusing the hell out of me.
Anthony Black.
Okay.
Watch him. Got the crazy hair, kind of playing the point. Looks really young. That dude's going to be a really good NBA player.
Interesting game. Speaking of the Aggies, they're at Rupp on Saturday. Texas A&M, Kentucky. It's an interesting game.
Oh, that is an interesting game.
Yeah, that's one.
3 shot for Buzz.
1 o'clock ESPN for that one. Auburn is at South Carolina. I like the Tigers' chances against the Gamecocks on Saturday. Oh, boy.
All Bruce got to do is make sure they wake up.
I mean, they can't offensively. That is a nightmare of a team.
Yeah, I mean.
Defensively, offensively, rebounding.
Literally, if Auburn just plays.
They won at Rupp.
I mean, sports happen, but Auburn would have to find a way to. They'd have to find a way to try to lose that game.
Tennessee LSU on Saturday. Tennessee 5-1 coming off the loss to Kentucky last weekend.
Yeah,
LSU
balls are good though.
Oh yeah, it's all good. Florida at Mississippi State.
Oh,
Bulldogs 1-5 in the SEC.
Yeah, they're
better win a home game against the Gators on Saturday.
Better hustle up. This is a big game for them.
And then you mentioned your Dennis Gates fandom. I mean, the guys are coming into the arena. Alabama at Missouri on Saturday.
Oh, free shot.
I mean,
let it all hang out.
Give it hell, see what happens.
Let it all hang out.
But I mean, Alabama's a national title contender.
What's Mizzou in the league? 3-3?
3-3.
Yeah.
14-4, 3-3.
I mean, I think Bama's the best team in the country right now.
Yeah, the best in the country.
I do.
They'll move up at least some this week if they win, since Kansas lost to Kansas State, even though it was a Kansas State home game against the whatever pole mechanics and whatnot.
Yep.
But nonetheless,
Kansas is going to be fine.
And then Missouri, that's Ole Miss's next opponent after Arkansas. They are in Oxford on Tuesday at 6:00. So, really, it's 4 or 5. It's Missouri's schedule, and we'll get off Missouri basketball because nobody really gives a shit. But their next few games is interesting. They get Alabama in that free shot at home.
Mm-hmm.
They go to Ole Miss in a game they'll probably be favored on the road.
Yep.
And then they get Iowa State at home. Number 12 Cyclones. Get a marquee resume win chance there.
Yeah, they could win that game
from Iowa State.
I've watched Iowa State a little bit. They could win that game.
They play LSU at home.
Win.
Go to Starkville. Again, another road chance to win a game.
And State could be kind of flummoxed by then.
And then South Carolina at home. Like, that thing could run right there for a minute. There's a bit of a – now, after that, load up for Bear. It's at Tennessee, at Auburn, A&M. But got a little stretch, but it's –
But they've got some runway to build momentum.
Well, when they close, Georgia, LSU, Ole Miss.
Oh, yeah. How about that?
Again, we're looking way ahead. But if you told me right now, in or out, they're in. They're going to win enough.
I think they're in.
Yeah, I think they're going to win enough. I think Missouri's going to make the tournament.
Just watching them, I think they're a tournament team.
Yeah, I do too. Interesting.
Look, they damn near won in Fayetteville. They were up 17 and got away from them. He's done a really good job. I mean, he doesn't have a bunch of players. But he's brought a lot of energy to them. It's fresh, and the crowd gets into it. Basketball's big there. They love it. They've had a fun environment for games. They'll be rowdy for Alabama. Why not? Take a shot. Nothing to lose. Bama's net's like 2. You got nothing to lose.
And at some point, Bama will lose a game.
Yeah, sure. But if you're Mizzou, hey, fellas, let's have some fun.
Are you an 8 to a 10 on all 4 of these NFL games this weekend from a watchability standpoint? Jacksonville, Kansas City.
I'm 7-ish there because
Jacksonville's got to prove it to you.
That's the game, right? That Jacksonville on Saturday is going to have to get me, to get me to go get in front of the TV at 4:30, 5 o'clock. They're going to have to be going.
But if you look up and it's going into the 4th and it's 24-all, and you go, hey, let's watch a quarter of football right here and see what happens. Yeah. The Giants have got to prove it to me in Philadelphia on Saturday night.
See, I'm about a 9 there. I'm super intrigued by the Giants.
You've got a feeling.
Yeah, I just do. I kind of have a feeling this is going to be a really good game. And I kind of have a man crush on Saquon Barkley.
You do.
And so I just think this is such a big opportunity for him. And then I'm a big A.J. Brown fan. So there's enough here to pull me in.
Yeah, sure.
And I'm not emotionally invested. So whoever loses.
It's not changing your night.
Like, I'm not going to feel bad for the Eagles if they lose.
No, whatever.
And I'm not going to feel bad for the Giants if they lose. Whatever. If the Giants win, I think I'd be kind of happy. If the Eagles win, I think I'd just go to bed.
It's kind of like that Jacksonville thing. I don't have much of a reason to pull for anybody necessarily. I don't care. I kind of like Doug Peterson, though. I kind of want to see him win football games.
Oh, shit, dude.
Like,
look, if they win, the narrative, which is the word that we all use for some reason, and I don't know why, I use it a lot too, so I'm making fun of me. It changes on them going into the next season. You start talking about the Jags as a Super Bowl contender.
You do.
Like, you do. I mean, you might anyway. He's a hell of a coach. And there's a lot more to them than the quarterback. Like, they're pretty salty on defense.
Oh, no, they're just a good football team. I mean, if they won the other day, I know he had a great second half, but in spite of Trevor Lawrence. I mean,
right. He had a terrible first half.
Awful. And
yeah, I mean, just brutal.
But they're good. Really good. I mean,
the 2:00 game on Sunday for me is a 10, and I'll be emotionally invested in it to the point that the outcome of that.
Are you surprised you've gotten actually emotionally invested in Bengals games? Because it was a shtick.
It was shtick for a while.
And it's still, I mean, it's not a shtick, but you're.
I like them. They're fun. And look, I'm like Jeffrey. There's something about Burrow that just makes you just love the guy. And I know a lot of our audience doesn't because he was an LSU guy and all that stuff. I get it, whatever. But, man, he's fun. And Jamar Chase and T. Higgins. And, I mean, I know Mixon's not the best dude in the world, but, God, he's a fun running back to watch. And to watch, like, if Burrow can beat Buffalo in Buffalo with this offensive line, we've got to start talking about him as being the best quarterback in the league.
Okay.
Because then they get another shot, presumably, at Mahomes. And if he beats,
he's got to win that too.
But if he beats Mahomes for a fourth time,
yeah,
you have to start going, hey, just maybe. And Cincinnati's better on defense than they get credit for, and Buffalo is beat up on defense. I mean, Miller, Hamlin, they had several guys miss practice yesterday on the defensive side of the ball. And then to answer your question, Niners, Cowboys, I'm probably a 10.
Are you?
I'm probably locked in. It's just a fascinating game.
It is a fascinating game. I've hated them I've hated them my whole life. I find myself almost pulling for the 49ers.
Almost?
So, I mean, in general, not in the game. I mean, like, just period. Like, kind of like because look, they used to beat the hell out of my Saints in the 90s when they were all in the NFC West. I mean, that was a torture fest.
To me, I'm
still mad about Vernon Davis to this day from 2011. I mean, like, I got a lot of scar tissue here, and because I watched the Rams because of Dylan, so I'm watching like more of them. I've got like Seattle that I really, really hate, and San Francisco that I really, really hate out west for Saints reasons. But something about this team with the 49ers where I kind of go, I'm all right here.
Deebo Samuel's very likable. You can't help but cheer for Brock Purdy.
Sure.
McCaffrey is so much of a better player than even people give him credit for, and I think he gets a ton of credit for being a great player. And then they just kind of have everything else. And defensively, they're a bitch. They're the Ravens defensively.
Oh.
They're nasty. And look, if Dallas plays the way that it played on Monday night, this is going to be a classic. Because Jeffrey's right. The Cowboys' ability to disrupt the passing game with their pass rush is a game changer. Now, Dak's got to play like that again. Dak can't regress at all in San Francisco and then win. But if he plays like he played on Monday night, this is going to be an absolute classic of a football game. It's the best weekend in the NFL, and it's got a chance to be. This has a chance to be a great weekend. It usually is, and this one in particular has a chance. If Jacksonville gets going and makes that a competitive game, you talk about scar tissue. Kansas City has some scar tissue with playoff losses. Should have lost last year in this weekend. Buffalo had them.
Mm-hmm. I was looking at I don't know exactly what the stat was. I guess it was 2021 Big 12 quarterback stats that I guess probably some Spencer Sanders thing I ran across over the course of the last week.
Yeah.
But on the list with him, the four guys in the top five were Caleb Williams, Max Duggan, Skylar Thompson, and Brock Purdy.
Really?
So two guys who have started NFL playoff games this weekend, and then two dudes who are 1-2 for the Heisman Trophy.
Yeah, so much of
it. Was like, whoa, where'd that come from?
So,
like I stared at it and went, holy hell.
There's a lot of Big 12 slander, and I've done it too.
Well, it just shows you how quick things change too. Because like there was that PFF thing that made our board yesterday of the draft, but it was from like a year ago for this draft, and it was like they had Tanner McKee 4th overall or something, and it was like, hold on, whoa.
Hot takes.
Yeah, Eric Gilbert was in the top 10. Dude didn't play. Like it's.
I mean, he looks like a top 10.
Oh,
but doesn't act like one.
No, there's some.
Whew.
Got some issues there.
Yeah, apparently.
Got some issues.
Apparently. So today we're watching for commitments.
We're watching for Spencer Sanders. We're watching for the kid from Alabama.
Yeah.
The kid from North Texas.
Kennedy, and then the kid from North Texas.
And the kid from Louisville.
People ask this question, how many stories do you have in your admin ready to go? 4. I have 4.
Yeah.
I got up this morning and updated everything to Thursday.
Did you?
I'll get up tomorrow, and if nothing's happened, I'll update everything to Friday.
They'll sit there until they go somewhere, and then they will either publish or be deleted.
The Montgomery kid, the linebacker from Louisville, is the one I'm interested in because he shows up today, and I think the plan here has been and is to get him locked down. So he's kind of it kind of has an NFL free agency feel to it. He's got he tweeted out that he's planning to go to West Virginia tomorrow and then to A&M for a day before he does anything. So all 3 of those places are trying to get him in the building and lock him down where he doesn't go to the other buildings. That's what you watch for with him.
Okay.
But he might take all 3 visits because he's like, hey, I'm going. I'm going to go through the recruiting process. I'm going to see what everybody has to offer.
What's Ole Miss's portal number up to now?
I can't keep count.
Like 7? I don't know.
And then last night, Tysheem Johnson finally got in. Tysheem was getting frustrated.
Oh, really?
Yeah, I think he felt like games were being played. Kincaid Dent
He's getting in the portal, or I guess he already is. Or
got
whatever.
in or has filed his paperwork to get in.
It takes a minute to get to walk through the doors of the portal.
He had already heard from several schools, Oklahoma State included. He's one of those guys you cheer for.
Oh,
I hope he gets to go someplace and
Luke.
Hope he gets to
Illinois
play.
wins football games.
Oh yeah. We'll all be everybody who covered Ole Miss
pulling for Luke.
We'll be
Illinois.
cheering for Illinois' offense next season. Luke's good people.
It was mentioned in the stream, but when we were talking about Jacksonville, Evan Ingram has had a nice year. He's kind of revitalized things.
Yeah.
For him. I mean, I know the tight end position from a fantasy standpoint was down this year, but he was like a top 5, top 6 tight end in the NFL from a production standpoint. So he had a huge catch the other day in their playoff comeback. He's been good.
He's had a really good career when you think about it. Had a little lull in it, like you said.
Had some drops. Had a shoe kind of holding onto the ball at one point.
He did, but he appears to have fixed it.
It's hard to excel in the NFL. It's a difficult task. It's.
Well, I mean, there's a reason that the average NFL career is about a year.
The defense tries to. They have athletes.
Yeah. I always love. Oh, that team sucks. Like every dude on that team is the best player in the history of his high school. Everyone. So remember that. When you talk about how bad this team sucks. No, they don't suck. They suck by NFL standards.
This is relative because it's obviously not to that level. But actually, my favorite trope on that is the kid on the end of the college basketball bench would go school your ass in a game of 21 right now. He would beat you to a pulp.
He would show up and go for a run at the intramurals and just light it up. That dude's got 46. Yeah. He can't get on the floor.
Well, it happened. There was a former media relations guy at Ole Miss that challenged one of the walk-ons to a basketball game years ago, and I think he got beat 21-0. Pretty sure it was 21-0, if I remember that correctly. Yeah. I forget which player that was. 2023 regular season for the NFL, just by the way, there will be 5 teams play international home games next year. So just heads up on that. If you're one of those teams, the Chiefs and the Patriots are both going to host games in Germany, and the Bills, Titans, and Jaguars will play in London in games that are designated home teams. The Tottenham Hotspur Stadium for the Bills and the Titans, and Wembley for the Jags. So,
Lane Kiffin replies to his own tweet from yesterday, 2 minutes ago, with "wait for it," and then
what was the tweet yesterday? The rods and the reels and the fish.
Yep, it says "wait for it," and he has 3 dots with the space and then 2 dots. No idea what that means.
Or Morse code?
No clue.
Is it Morse code?
It's conceivable. I don't know.
Tulu Griffin remaining at Mississippi State, by the way.
Yes.
This was the one more piece of information yesterday.
Yes.
Glad Steve could get a win. I'm proud of him.
He celebrated it.
He said the line was broken or something.
One
like
of the
that.
rods broke.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Again, I'm convinced that's shtick. That's appealing to a segment of a base.
A fringe audience.
I would think.
Your normal fan's not going, oh, yeah, please. Right?
Wouldn't think. But I don't know. Beats me.
Staley, is it that they've said Staley's staying for sure?
Yes.
Okay.
Fired the offensive coordinator and the quarterback's coach.
Bad coach.
Someone's got to always take the fall, man.
For the Chargers, though, don't you have to go?
I mean, if I'm the Chargers, I'm getting.
Did you at least make a backroom call to Sean Payton and go, hey?
If I'm the Chargers, If I'm the Chargers right now, I'm like, I'll give you a first round pick. I'll give you whatever the hell you want.
I need him.
But I need him right now.
That's what I'm saying.
Yes.
You call Sean and go, hey, look, you'll come, right? You want us?
I make the deal. If I'm the people that run the Chargers, I want Sean Payton getting in the room with Justin Herbert, and let's see if we can't do this. Because the one thing you can say about Herbert, whatever you want to say, physically, he's got all the tools.
Sure.
So bring in Payton and figure it out. Because if he can't figure it out, well, then no one's going to win with him.
Yeah. Yeah, we need to know that.
And
we need to know that Peyton can't do it.
Because where the Chargers are right now is they're a perennial wild card weekend team.
And that's just not getting it done.
That's purgatory, man.
Yeah, that's not getting it done.
So, yes, but if I were the Chargers, would I trade my first-round pick for Sean Payton? I would, absolutely. Tomorrow.
Yeah.
Right now. Yep. I'd give him whatever millions he wanted here. But I need you here like in 5 minutes, please. We're sending the plane. Pack your stuff. Hire who you need to hire. Let's go.
Yeah.
Because the AFC is so competitive, and it's not getting any less competitive. You've got Allen, you've got Burrow, you've got Mahomes. Now you've got Jacksonville coming. You got to go.
Raiders are trying.
Raiders are trying. Pittsburgh looks like there's some life. You got to go. If you're the Chargers, you just got to go. You got to go right now, and you got to do it.
I guess Belichick would be the, hey, hand raise thing. But Mike Tomlin's deal of 16 or 17 seasons as an NFL head coach without ever having a losing record has got to be one of the more remarkable things.
It's one
from
of the
stat-wise in the NFL.
It's one of the more underappreciated things.
Yeah.
Because he's not flashy. He's kind of blue-collar, workman-like dude who fits Pittsburgh.
I mean, got jewelry, won it.
Oh, it's got jewelry. Been good. It's hard.
Well, it was like the thing last year. Go, hey, are they going to fire Mike Tomlin? It's like, okay, look, if you fire Mike Tomlin, that can't go anywhere he wants to go.
Oh, his agent would be like, oh, shit. The phone. It would just light
There
up.
are 31 calls coming in right now. Going.
Probably not 31, but it would be
20.
17 to 20.
Just going to check. Hey, I mean.
Oh, yeah. I mean, hey, how quick could we get this done? This could get a little messy, but are you interested?
Yeah, we'll figure it out.
Sure. I mean, the list of teams that would go, no, we're good, would be really small. It's a list, but it would be small. Like, I don't think the Bills would be interested, for example. I think they're perfectly happy with Sean McDermott.
Sure, yeah.
You know, that's an example.
Yeah. Dayball's not getting fired, and you're
the Giants would be like, no, I mean, look, Tomlin's really good, but we're cool.
Yeah,
we like what we got. Jacksonville right now would say, nope, we like where we are.
Yeah.
The Saints would be like, oh my God.
Yeah.
We're sending all the planes. Pick your plane.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, I mean, there would be a lot of that. He's very underappreciated.
He is.
I got to meet him one time at the Senior Bowl.
Did you?
Got to actually stand there and talk to him for like 10 minutes.
He talked?
Yeah, he was cool.
He's fine.
He was really nice. Everybody says that he's just a guy that you leave him alone. If he's at work, like, leave him alone. And if he hadn't had his coffee, you have to leave him alone.
Oh.
He's a coffee person.
Okay. He probably just needs a minute. Like, let me
I was standing there with another NFL guy who I know, and he introduced me. So I didn't like walk up to him and go, hey, coach, just wondering if I could talk about the Steelers.
Can you sign my?
Yeah, and instead we just kind of had a conversation a little bit. He was very nice. Sharp guy.
There will be a very quick hand raise, guys, tonight. It will. If you're interested, come, and we're gonna get in, get out, and move on with our days. we'll recap anything that did happen today in that tonight. Obviously you don't follow it. I don't really follow it a ton much anymore, but have you seen all this the havoc on the bottom half of the draw in the Australian Open?
I have not.
The bottom half of the entire tournament that's remaining, there's not a top 30 seed remaining.
Really?
Yeah, it's completely a wild card on the bottom half. Just
is Djokovic still in?
Yeah, it feels Medvedev might be his only even sort of competition the rest of the way. I mean, it is completely opened up where he's in good shape. He got into it last night with the umpire because, and look, he handled it really well. I saw Andy Roddick tweeting about it this morning, going, "It's all Djokovic could do." There was a drunk fan that would not stop yelling at him, and he basically walked over and goes, "Look, he's clearly drunk. He's clearly not here to watch tennis. You've heard him like 4 times. I've heard him 20. How are you going to fix it?"
Right.
And the guy was basically like, "We can't do anything." And Chuck was
Why
like,
can't they dismiss him?
I think they ended up dismissing him, but I think that apparently one of those umpires is that umpire, his Twitter was telling me, I have no clue, is one of the more lenient ones that won't really give players a lot of discretion in those things. And he essentially was going to do it, but he was going to make Djokovic not get his way before he did it, I think, was kind of how that was playing out. Well, and what I found funny about it is you can watch the video. Djokovic's opponent was laughing during the thing at Djokovic's back and forth. And I thought, it's hurting that guy too. That means he knows he ain't got a shot in hell of winning. Right. He's just hanging out right now because he's laughing at Djokovic. Because if you're actually in the match, you would want the guy out too. I'm not, yes, whatever. Instead, he's like cackling up.
I'm not winning, right?
Yeah.
It's just all part of the experience here.
Yeah. So anyway. All right, hand raise, guys. Tonight we are on several different watches today, including Spencer Sanders. So content there at rebelgrove.com for whatever happens. Appreciate Jeffrey for his time every single Thursday, leading right up to his show with Calkins at 9 o'clock in the morning. So we'll be back tonight, and we'll talk to you again very soon.